Well, I think the most important thing is to get the voices of the people in this district actually heard and presented down in Frankfurt. I think what we've had the last couple of years here as someone who's presenting the voices of a national party versus what's actually needed in this district by the people, the working class people in this district. Well, I think several things. One, I'm very concerned about public education and shoring that up and shoring up our teachers. I'm very concerned about the threats that we've been seeing against the DEI programs and policies in Kentucky, that they've not been solidified on a legislative basis yet, but I believe that's coming. I think that's already been discussed in the last session to a certain degree, and I think it's going to come to a head in this next session. And I'm very concerned about that and the impact it has on the people in this district and the people of Kentucky in general. I stand on, I think that is going to be decided by higher powers than me. And I think it's one of those kind of issues that it's, I definitely need to hear more from both sides of it. But it's a tricky issue in this area because we do have essentially, we have a fine medical system, but it's also just one entity. And so there's some conflicts there and there's some advantages there. But it's a finely threaded issue that needs to be addressed with great care. Well, I'm a former educator. I worked in private schools. I worked in public schools. I attended public schools myself. Two of my children went to public school. One of my children went to a private school because I worked there essentially. And one of my children, I have an adult son on the autism spectrum. There was no place for him in a private school. There would never be a place for him in a private school. And I've seen how both of these schools operate and work. And I'm a strong proponent for people going to whatever the school of their choice is. But I think they can find that choice within the public school system as well. We have, in this area, we have the Ignite Institute to give some choices. And we also have open enrollment kind of issues within the counties and so forth. So I'm a strong proponent of we keep public school dollars in public schools. We've seen what's happened in other states that have already done this and the devastating impact it's had on the budgets and the services of the public schools, and also the impact it's had on real estate, personal property taxes, because when the schools start failing because that money is being bled out of the public schools, there has to be a push to find some money somewhere to keep the public schools going. And that has greatly impacted property taxes in other areas that have already enacted this. So I'm a firm no on that one. If Amendment 2 is passed, I don't believe we as a legislator will have, I think it's going to be a literal trying to save the sinking ship kind of mission, because I do believe that the effects will be so devastating that it will be, I don't know where the money will come from. How's that? I don't know where there's not enough money to do that and do a sufficient job. We've already had funding proposals from the governor for both teachers and retirees and staff within the schools, and just general funding for the school systems that has been turned down by the Republican supermajority in Frankfurt. So if they're already not funding it adequately, the taking even more money out and giving it somewhere else is not going to, it's just going to be an untenable situation. It truly does spell disaster in my opinion. So it will be a trying to find the, stick the finger in the dam kind of thing. It won't be well thought out, nuanced legislation. It will be literally crisis mode, stop stop the bleed out. So, and I don't think that makes for good policy. Yes, I believe that the government or anybody should not have any say over what a woman does with her body autonomy. And I certainly think that there should be exceptions for rape, incest. But besides that, there are so many abortion procedures that are termed abortion procedures that people do not recognize as such. A D&C after a miscarriage is an abortion procedure. And we've already seen witness to other states where they've had real crises with different individuals where they've been denied medical care after a miscarriage until it gets to be potentially fatal. We already have a crisis in a lot of our areas of our state. We have over 50% of Kentucky counties do not have a single OBGYN operating within their county. Now, luckily, we have some major cities and we have some cities in Tennessee and Ohio and so forth that people can travel across state to get access to medical care. But we already have a severe lack of OBGYNs in this state. And this kind of legislation is going to, it impacts healthcare in general and gets people in more crises areas of pregnancy than they might be if they were getting adequate care and had ready care available to them. No, no, I am horrified by those changes. I don't want a lessening of these DEI things. I think it's a backwards agenda. I remember before these things. And what a lot of people don't realize is DEI is not just a minority. It's not, it can be a religious difference. It can also be a gender difference. And DEI covers a lot of things for women. In fact, statistically, the people that have benefited by DEI initiatives the most are white women. And I think a lot of people ignore that fact. But giving everybody full advantage and full access to opportunities is never a bad thing. And limiting those is just a bad policy. And unfortunately, one of the reasons we have government is we can't always count on the best natures of people. And I know myself when I was a young woman, I was in a non-traditional field. I was in industrial management and production supervision. And I faced a lot of difficulty getting into that field as a woman. I had incidents where I knew I was being offered less money than a male counterpart for the same services. I had incidents where I experienced sexual harassment in the job, and there was just like, well, you wanted to be here. When I announced my first pregnancy, I was immediately let go from my position because they didn't have to deal with that at that time. It was inconvenient because women, which was another reason why they didn't want to hire women, because they might get pregnant. So the idea that the same people that are going after birth control issues and wanting to limit those kind of things are also the same people that want to get rid of DEI is, to me, it's almost an attack on women, an economic attack on women. So, and that's not even the of our culture in general. We're a very diverse nation. The 69th district is becoming one of the most ethnically diverse districts in Kentucky. We have to stick with those things, and I'm appalled that they are being attacked in the way they are. Housing is bad. I know that. We know that with my own family, with just trying my own children, and trying to find proper housing, affordable housing, and those kind of things. And it is a huge issue. And I know my opponent in this race has suggested some zoning changes as being releasing zoning requirements or requirements, but opposition to perhaps building things in your backyard or making things into multi-use. And I think that some of that could be helpful. I think the unleashed nature of what he proposed is too much. You're going to have a resultant drop in property values, and once again, it might still be inadequate housing and properly constructed housing that was just for monetary gain. But it is an issue. But I think once again, I think housing has to be addressed from an economic standpoint. If you have people that are working for a wage that is not sufficient to their needs, and in this area we have a lot of that. We have also ties in with our education kind of things, our public school dollars. One of the things in this area, an average teacher with 5 years in this area probably makes about $40,000 a year. That's not enough to have are not considered a reasonable amount to have a housing in this area, particularly if you have children. If you're a single person, yes. If you have 1 or 2 children, that's not enough money to give you adequate housing and income for your family. So there's a lot of issues that are once again come back to economic. We've got to improve. We need to be doing something about wages. We have one of the lowest wages, minimum wages possible. Of course, it's not even realistic. Very few people work for that, but we also shouldn't be attacking labor laws and labor protections like they did in the last session, and suggesting things like letting 14-year-olds go to work and previously determined hazardous jobs up to 30 hours a week. Well, if you can pay a 14-year-old $10 or $12 an hour, why would you pay an adult $15 or $20 an hour, which we've already said is still not adequate for housing? So there's so many of these issues come back to just good economic policy, and we've not seen a lot of that in Frankfort. No, I don't support that, because it's kind of a fallacy. You still pay for what you do because you're paying for it in higher sales taxes on items. And so it's basically, if you reduce the income tax deduction and you have to raise the sales taxes to come up with that money. Income taxes, people pay based on their income. People buy food and housing and clothing and services based on need. So it's transferring a lot of the tax needs to people that are not of the same income as it was before. So I think it's unfair to the working class people. And I think it's not a great budgetary device to begin with. One of the things that I am concerned about and that I'm concentrating on a lot is just the extremism and that we've seen out of the supermajority down in Frankfort. Some of these extreme measures that they're not addressing the needs of the people here. they're just playing to a national audience, and they're not addressing the working class and middle class values and needs of this community. And I'm worried about that there's been some, I guess the word is threats to healthcare. The Republican supermajority is threatening to remove at least some portion of healthcare benefits to 600,000 Kentuckians, primarily Medicaid and Medicare people. These are people that are already struggling and already are reliant on those issues. It's not easily replaced. And I just think we have to stop these economic attacks on people that we're wrapping in so-called moral or religious issues. And it really comes down to just flat out economic issues and a more divisive two-tiered society that we don't need. And we were making some, Governor Beshear has had his Build Better plan has great opportunities to build back better things for middle-class people and working people. And he's been stymied a lot. And so going down there to help him do the things that he was elected for and reelected to do is an important part of why I'm running.